Hello everybody, welcome back to Commonwealth Flipper. I'm headed to that cabin, been doing some work in here, and I think I may be biting off a little more than I can chew on today's video. I'm going to answer a question and a debate that I've had with some other resellers as well, and some folks have been talking about it on their own podcasts and stuff, and I want to kind of dig into it a little bit and explore it. And I've decided, since this is a big topic, I'm going to take an extra day and do some extra shipping this week and split this one up into two. Because there is a lot of sales and I don't want to do 25, 26, 27 sales today. I want to split it up into today and tomorrow. So we're going to look at a few issues. The main question though, and we're going to kind of branch off of that, is looking at pricing structures, pricing strategies for resellers, business models, whether it's something as simple as, you know, what we always talk about, you know, the fast nickel versus the slow dime, and some other factors that I think are becoming increasingly important. And I think this discussion is going to lead us into trends in reselling and also platforms a little bit, but we're not going to start there. This one was so cheap. I got this one. I just saw it and I knew that sale was super cheap, and it looked to be in very good condition for a wind-up toy that was working, and the eyes are perfect on it. I'm like, geez, I'll definitely grab it. It's like a quarter. I'm like, I don't even know what it's worth, but it's got to be worth a quarter. And I picked it up and I brought it home listed at $20 plus shipping. Sold pretty quick. So let me first say that I get this question a lot, and matter of fact, I got one on eBay the other day, which I'll just say this real quick since I'm talking about it. Try not to send me anything on eBay that's not about an eBay item. That's, you know, it's not exactly the easiest thing to deal with, the actual questions about eBay items and then see all the other stuff there. No offense if you have, but one thing you can do, since I asked this a couple go 2-3 videos back at this point and look at that video, and people are asking questions there. I'm going to do a Q&A video coming up, but I think that's the best strategy to ask your question anyways, because there's a ton of amazing resellers that listen to this show. So many that are far better than me, and they may be able to answer your question better than me, or at least give a different perspective based on how they do things. And that's kind of the way we're going to look at this today. Second thing is, this is a question I get often. I do have an opinion on it. I'll give you my opinion, but like always, there's not always exact situations and same circumstances for all sellers. But I think we should understand the different circumstances when we go to price items, whether it's multi-quantity items, whether it's one-offs. What's the strategy? What's the game plan? And I think it varies person to person. I don't often show this room. I'm in the outer room of the eBay cave in there, and that's where I keep a lot of my clothing. And I have a bunch of it. And this one might be a great one to use as kind of a jumping off point for our topic today. So I'm going to be really honest today. Not that I always am not honest, but I'm going to be a little bit more forthcoming, I guess, about certain things. I might even mention a few folks' names. Matter of fact, I'm going to right now. Because what got me going on this a while back was my buddy John, Flippin' Ain't Easy, said something on his podcast, and I thought, I don't really think about it that way. And listen, John is an amazing reseller with all kinds of amazing information. But it just shows you that people think about things differently. And I've since changed my opinion slightly on it, but I still think the same way. This right here is a great example of what I'm talking about. So this is a vintage, look at this, made in Hong Kong, size large, Adidas Olympic Games. Now it says 1908, but it's just, I think it's like this is the London Games. And it is like the anniversary of it, right? 1948, 1908. And then whatever the next one was. So it's like a remembrance. But it's this cool jacket, Olympic jacket. And it's sold on Mercari. Shout out List Perfectly, Commonwealth. And it sold for $113 plus shipping over there. No fees on that one. So that's really cool. And I paid 10 cents for it. So John said in that I think it was his podcast that they have. It might have been his show, his live show. But at any rate, he said something, and I did one of those little head tilters, you know, like scratch my head like, I guess I didn't think about it like that, or I don't think like that. He said something like somebody sends him an offer and he went to check because I think he puts it in his listing or something. I can't remember what you said, to be honest with you, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Where he went to see what his cost was on that item to determine whether or not he would take that sale or not, that offer or not. And I thought, I never do that. Matter of fact, I pretty much have an idea of what I paid for everything, at least close to it, right? But he was actually saying that part was gonna be part of the determining factor in whether or not he takes an offer or not. And that's just not the way I think of it. But I think when I've tried to explore this a little bit further, different people are in different situations, and I can certainly see that as a determining factor, I suppose. But I think it's not the way that I would go about it. Now, for me, the inverse, and I think John would actually agree with this, the inverse of this is 100% true. So the inverse is, instead of determining whether or not you're going to sell something based on what you bought it for, sell something at a certain price based on what you bought it for, that determination for me, of course, what something is selling for is going to really heavily influence, completely influence what I'm buying it for. Just for context, and by the way, John, come on over and chat over here. If I mess up anything, you know me, that's not my intent. This has been hanging around for context-wise. It's been listed for probably 20 months. That's how long this thing's been listed. And I just now took that sale. And maybe I will be in the minority on this, but I don't, well, it doesn't really matter if I am or not, but I want to use it to think about pricing and getting people to think through that. Well, they don't even really need to think through it, but maybe new resellers need to think through their processes when they go to list an item and price an item or accept an offer on an item. Because for me, and I will explain why, the price that I paid for an item is almost non-existent in my, it is kind of psychologically, right? You know what you paid for something, it's like, yeah, I can take that kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm not denying it doesn't play a role. But it is way, way down my list of thoughts, and it's really just a psychological thought. This thing was cool. Paid $5 for this at a sale the other day. It's a Klee. That is a Sony product. And it's like, I don't know, it's like a pre-iPad fold. I don't know. I never even seen one of these before. And I picked it up for $5, and it sold pretty quick, actually. So, because it had all the little paperwork and stuff. That stuff always helps. I don't know what it sold for. I didn't write it down. Had to look at my computer screen. Sold for $69.95 plus shipping. That's a pretty darn good sale. So let's go back to this, and I'll give you some examples, because I actually think that different, let me put it, how do I say it without ticking anybody off? There are different price structures that upset the other side sometimes. So for the folks out there who are trying to get top dollar, maybe they don't have a lot to source, maybe they're not, I don't know, maybe they don't need the money. This is a big part of the equation, right? There is an opportunity cost for having your capital tied up in items, and that may very well determine how low you will go to sell an item quickly. And, obviously if your cost is low, you're able to do that, and you're able to churn and burn quite quickly, and you can get that money back as capital that can be reinvested in another product. And so there's definitely an argument for that. And then there's some folks out there who buy and they want to get absolute top dollar. I actually think both models are right, but they're right for completely different people. And I also think that the strategy depends on the item. If it is a multi-quantity popular item out there that everybody has versus something that isn't, I think that is a determining factor as well. But price rarely plays into it for me, but it can for some folks, and I get it. So this is, I'll try to see the size on this. I don't remember. Size large. So my guess is there are very few of these jackets out there, like very few. And then you take the size into account, and then there are even fewer. So this was an item that I was willing to put out there. I think I had it started at like $200 or something, and just let it slowly go out there. And maybe I find the right buyer quickly and get $200. Maybe I don't. This is an item that I could have sold very cheap and got 10 cents into, say, $75 very, very quickly, because somebody would have bought it, who a vintage seller or something that would have reposted it and tried to get top dollar. And so I think both strategies can work depending on who you are. Most of you know I'm buddies with the guys over at the Reseller Information Network. I think they're all amazing resellers and terrific guys. And this topic came up as a debate in their podcast, their live show the other day. And my buddy Scott, who I've had the opportunity to meet a couple times, Bearded Picker, was in there too. And this debate started going on, and it was something that I just found myself fascinated with. And I really tried to explore all this stuff in my mind, and then back on his live show. And of course, he's on the show with John. And so it was all this. It's like, this is an interesting mix. This is something we need to talk about because there's disagreement. And I think there's also common ground. And I think there's a lot of resellers out there who make these determinations for themselves, how best to price something in order to get it to sell, but weighing how much you can make off of it if you hold on to it. And also some market concerns as well. You know, is this one road all the way to the bottom floor here on these sales? So there's a lot to think about here, and there's a lot to determining what you should price something at. And I want to get some of your opinions out there and your feedback on this topic, but hear me out before you give your feedback. All right, I had to put the camera down because I had to get that and this, and there's no way I had enough hands. So this is an old E-Series Rainbow, and I have passed these up before for $50. This one I was not going to pass up in any way, shape, or form because it was perfectly clean. It was awesome, and it had the box for this. This stuff was all pristine in there, and I'm like, I can't pass it up for $50 because I knew I could make some money on it, and I did. It sold for $350 plus shipping. I'll probably ship in 2 different packages because of the length of that one versus that one, and it won't be very much more money. So when I go to price an item, here's the way I think. This is my determining factors in pricing an item, and different items vary, of course, but just a generic typical item. Well, I don't even know if I want to use that. That's not a typical item. The first thing I look at is what's the average selling price for this thing? Are comps all over the place? Is it pretty consistent? What's the sell-through rate on an item? If it's really, really low on an item, you know, it's just not selling very quickly, I am going to undercut that market. There's no doubt about it. If it is a high sell-through rate item, I'm not going to undercut that market. I'm going to put it at the market value. I rarely go over, but I do go over from time to time based on certain factors that I don't want to get into right now. One of them is having a better title. Let's just say that. Keywords, searchability, something like this, size. If I have the only one in that size, I got no problem bumping that price well over sold comps if it's in great condition and seeing what happens. So none of the factors involve what I paid for an item. That's not to say what I paid for an item isn't important. It is extremely important. Obviously, what you're paying for items is very, very important, but that is a done deal once you've paid for it. Pricing is a completely different animal. If you made a mistake and missed comp something, you paid $100 for it, and you come home and you realize it's not a vintage item, it's a repop or something. And that's happened to me before. I can't think of one right offhand. But what I paid for it is now not going to determine what I priced it. Because if I priced it over what I paid for it and it's not the item I thought it was, it's not ever going to sell. Saying all that, by the way, is absolutely not to say that a model that uses an accelerated sell-through rate, a volume model where you're selling much more and you're making a little bit less isn't a good model. It is a good model. I actually employ it a lot, and I think most resellers do, but we don't always. And I think there's, like, I think of Leroy, my buddy, Blood, Sweat, and Sell. He undersells the market, and he sells volume. And my buddy Eric does the same thing, and Carrie, American Arbitrage, he does as well. Here's actually an example of overpricing the market, to be honest with you. And it was because this very similar sets will sell for well under what I sold this one for. But I saw some keywords in there that were really helpful for me to jump that price up. A strategy in taking pictures. Certain pictures were taken of these items that had lower ASPs than others. And this box was slightly different. And the condition was terrific. So I up-priced this one right here. And I got my asking price, not completely at the top of the market, because this is an odd item, some Mahjong set. But I don't think there are many of this particular style that got more than I got for this one. I paid up for this one at a sale. It was funny. I think I ended up paying $25, and I got that and the racks that went with it as a throw-in. and come to find out that the racks are worth more than this, which was a nice little bonus. But there was somebody leaving that garage sale and was like, you're not going to find anything there. They're expensive. And they were expensive. But we found this, and they made a deal for 25 bucks. This sold for 125, 150. What did this sell for? 125 plus shipping. And we still have those racks that are priced higher than that, I think. So for me, the major determining factor, of course, is market price. But there are other factors involved. And I think we're shifting the conversation to model. What's your business model right now? And what works best for you is what you're capable of. And there's all kinds of questions you have to answer in regards to that, including this right here, space. Space is a big issue. Sourcing, what you can source, the volume of what you can source, the volume of what you can store, and then there's one other huge factor. Dave, if you're listening, I need an ADHD sticker here. I got the little ones in here. Elizabeth Arden Flawless Finish. Paid $1 for that one. Actually, it was in a bag that I paid $1 for, and I got this in it and some other things, so it was even cheaper than that. $17.05 plus shipping. Those of you that hate me wandering around and moving the camera while I talk, these guys make it really hard, so I'll maybe stand still for a minute so I don't step on somebody. So before I look at that big factor here, I want to show you something just to show you the ones I already talked about. Space is a big deal. That's shoes. This is shoes, this is shoes, those are boots back there. That's all I have for space for footwear. So that is a much bigger factor for me in determining whether or not I take an offer than what I paid for an item. That's what I mean by what is your model? Will it fit what you're capable of? And I'm capable of expanding, but I don't want to. I don't want to add another shed or a metal building or, redo my basement. And so space is an issue. That is, to me, a big factor. And you saw those clothes in there, right? I've got tons of clothes in that shed. I got a list. So I need to sell clothes. So dropping the price on certain clothes, running, maybe a 20-30% off sale or something on clothes or shoes. Sometimes it's time to do that, and you do it on the older stuff, the stuff that's been sitting around, because here's the key. The market changes on stuff. And if the market changes, I like to think about it like stock market. And I don't, I'm not a huge investor, but I do invest. And the folks that I listen to that talk about that side of the world and making money and investing, what you paid for a stock is not the determining factor as to if you sell it or not, because there's always an opportunity cost. So if you choose not to sell a certain stock, hoping that it'll get back to the level you bought it on, for instance, then there's an opportunity cost to not having that capital to put it into another stock that might rise. So it's not just about that stock, it's about the next stock as well. And so there, to me, is the rub. And I think this is the most important factor in it. And I think most resellers out there find themselves in this situation. There are some that don't, and I'm lucky enough to find myself not in this situation, where you have an opportunity cost for your capital tied up in inventory. I don't, for one simple reason. So another one of these Nike dry fit tees. I'm finally seeing this go down. We have sold tons of them, and we're into them for just over $1, and they're selling for different prices based on size or if I take an offer. I took an offer on this one. It's a Nike tee dry fit long sleeve large, $17 plus shipping. So the reason that capital doesn't play a role in my decision making process, while it will in a lot of people's, and it should in a lot of people's, is that I've been reselling for 20. These dogs at my feet here. I leave for a second. I've been reselling for 23, almost 24 years now. And you all right there, pup? Let me give him a treat. So out of the last 24 years, the first 9 of those, I was literally living hand to mouth. I mean, it was paycheck to paycheck. It was everything I could do to stay out of debt. And so every dime I made reselling went directly into my bank account. And it made it hard to source. And so there was an opportunity cost to not selling an item cheap. There isn't one for me now. Sorry, pup. And there's multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is 15 years ago, I started to pay myself on a percentage. And I would only pay myself that percentage, and I'd take a certain percentage and put it back into an operating budget and a certain percentage and put it into a sourcing budget that grew over time. And it grew to the point where I capped it, and then once I got to that level, then I would pay myself everything out of it until the sourcing went down. Then I would continue that and ramp it up. Of course, now I have multiple streams of income, and that's not an issue any further, but you know, I think it was a huge decision that I made a long, long time ago to pay myself in that percentage to build up that sourcing budget so there wouldn't be this risk, if you will, this capital allocation risk where I had to get money in before I could reallocate it somewhere else in order to make a purchase that might make me more money down the road. And so now I don't have that issue at all, but I know most people aren't in that situation. But I really think it's a good practice, even if it's a tiny sliver. Pay yourself a percentage. Most people out there do, but there's a lot of people who don't. But it could avoid the decision-making process of having to undersell something. Now, I'm not saying underselling something is always a bad decision. It's not. There's a lot of factors. Like, let me tell you, if somebody sends me an offer on the biggest item I got in there and it's like half price, half the price is what I got it for, and it's been in there for 2 years, whew, I'm probably going to take it. Tim, my buddy over the years, check it out. Look what I got listed finally. Anyway, this is a cool one. This ended up in the back of a picture of something else that we bought. It was a bonus. And that, believe it or not, right there, Priscilla and Elvis print sold for $35 plus shipping. Didn't even know I bought it when I bought it because there's 2 other pieces in the back of this frame with this thing. So that was a big bonus. Now, I know a lot of you who pay attention to all types of resellings, you see people, I mean, think of Goodwill. Goodwill's bins model is really, really different. You want to talk about underselling, right? They could clearly get more if they put their stuff on a rack and put a price tag on it. But the sell-through rate is way lower. The labor costs are way higher because of time involved. And so, you know, if you're getting goods for free and selling them for X amount a pound, and you're doing it rapidly, even if you're losing the highest dollar amount, you're making tons of money and your labor costs are down. I mean, how do you think some of these live sellers out there, whether it's Whatnot or whatever, on these live platforms, that's their model, right? They're selling $20 eBay items for $8, and they're doing it over and over and over and over again, like 24/7. I see people sell something every 10 seconds, and their show goes on for 24 hours, and they've got staff and stuff that do that, and they're doing it on volume. So there are different models and different styles that work. There's no doubt about it. For me, in my style, I employ a little bit of all of it, especially when I'm selling live over on Dibdit or whatever. I know I'm not getting top dollar over there for stuff, but I'm selling it quickly, and I'm able to preserve my time to get top dollar for the things I think I can. Oh, y'all are leaving, huh? No, you're not leaving. Here's a good example right here. This is an example of an item that I was not going to Black Rifle coffee mug, but it was in the box. It was stainless steel, I think. This is an item that I had multi-quantity. I've had 9 of. I think I'm down to 5. I was not going to be above the market on this one because I have so many and it's taking up a bunch of space. I was going to be at the market. Actually, I probably would have been below the market, but I had a box for it, and a lot of sellers aren't selling it in a box, and some people want the box because they're giving it as a gift, for instance. And so I knew I could be kind of at that good level, good balance level. And there's a lot of folks out there that complain, you know, hey, ruining the market out there, you ruin it for the rest of sellers if you're dropping your prices. And of course, you know, I don't think any of us think you should. There's no reason whatsoever to drop your price if an item has a decent sell-through rate way below the market value. That makes no sense whatsoever. I don't think anybody would make that argument out there. But I think there is an argument if you have multi-quantity of an item and you want to get it sold, to get it right below that next guy. I can certainly see that from time to time. But now there's a whole nother thing coming in, and that is the live selling, which we talked about. You want to talk about driving the market down, but here's the difference. Each market is different. Just like a garage sale is a different market, it's what arbitrage is all about. Where are you going to sell that item? And where does that item sell the best? And I know there's a lot of you that know exactly what arbitrage is. Stock market term for the most part, investing and whatever, but it applies to anything, any market per se. But it comes from the idea that you're buying a stock in one market and then you're immediately flipping it in another market because there's a margin to be made. I mean, people do that with me all the time because I make choices, like, for instance, to not sell a VCR on Amazon. I sell it on eBay, so somebody's going to arbitrage that item because it's in a market that demands a lower price. And there's things like Etsy, of course. I don't sell on Etsy. It's a choice of mine because of time. And to me, time is a huge asset when you're trying to make money. So in some ways, for some items, I'm choosing to get a lower dollar amount depending on the marketplace I'm selling in. We know this from Whatnot, right? You see, if I've talked about Flip the World often, you know, he's selling stuff well under market value for a different market. That's eBay. He's not selling it under the market value for Whatnot. And even Whatnot has different marketplaces within it. Each seller is its own marketplace, really. And the style of sale is its own marketplace too. So within eBay, there are two different marketplaces. There's an auction marketplace, and there's a static marketplace. And if you choose to sell something on auction, you are more than likely, I mean, there are some exceptions, but you are more than likely going to get, this was not a good buy, by the way, but it was $1, so $1 a piece. So $2 for these right here. Old Time Gospel Hour, Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible, and something else that I can't read because it's underneath it. And there you go, Illustrated David's Dictionary of the Bible. I have had success with this stuff before, but these weren't winners. But at $1, I just picked them up, brought them home. $14.95 plus shipping. Not a great buy. So this is essentially what we do for the most part. All of us, even if we don't know what we're doing, right? It's you're buying it at a thrift store. That's one marketplace. Thrift stores have certain prices that we've all come to. Well, I haven't come to accept them yet. It's still sticker shock to me. But garage sales have a certain value, right? Each garage sale has a different market, each individual market of itself, but collectively they have their own relative price, right? You don't go to a garage sale expecting to pay what you'd pay at Walmart. You don't go to a thrift store expecting, although you're paying more at some thrift stores at this point. But we're taking it out of one market, putting it in another, and the need for turning that is going to determine what you will accept or not. And if you can get to a point where your need is lower, a lot of times you can wait for that higher dollar amount. Some people choose not to because their whole business model is structured differently. If you choose to auction things off on eBay, I mean, unless there's some exceptions, right? You're going to get less money. There's just no doubt about it. And there are certain items I know if I knew Etsy better and was willing to do the work, I could get way more money for. I just choose not to because it doesn't fit my model. I don't think I've ever showed this room before. Actually, the very first video I ever did on the Commonwealth Picker channel was in here, I think. And you can see this is Coates. Reagan's yelling at the dog up there. And this one sold, but I know my coat limit. I know my model can only support this many coats unless I change something. I think my current model could support probably 2,500 active listings. I'm over 1,700, and you know, I don't want it to grow higher than that. It's just, I just don't want it to. And I know my model isn't the best, actually. If you determine best by how much money you can make and how you can scale, this isn't how you do it. Oh, you scale to a certain degree. We're doing pretty good, but I've purposely put a limit on it. I'm not putting up, well, I should never say never, but you never know, right? I'm not renting a giant storage unit. I'm not going to go and buy a giant metal building and put it in the corner. I want it to stay here because it fits me, it fits my desires, it fits my lifestyle. And my buddies over there, speaking of Reseller Information Network, you know, they got me really interested in tags years and years ago. And the Nike Team Tag for certain things does pretty well. This is a $35 jacket that I picked up. Super cheap. I think I bought it off another buddy of mine, so I paid up a little bit for it, I think. Although I can't remember. I buy a lot of Virginia Tech stuff, so I guarantee I didn't pay more than $35 plus shipping. I don't really think there's a huge concern for the markets on certain types of items being destroyed by people who put items in there really, really low. I just don't think it's a huge concern. I do think it is a concern when casual sellers start to jump in. People that aren't really resellers, but they need money and they're just going to go in there and try to sell their stuff off quickly on eBay. They really don't know what they're doing per se. They just know they need cash. I think this is big on Mercari too. As a matter of fact, I think it's part of Mercari's play in some of the changes they've made to get those casual sellers. I don't think eBay wants those casual sellers as much as other platforms, to be honest, because there's a lot of headaches that go with casual sellers because they don't know the ins and outs. They make mistakes, they get returns and all that. And so I don't think eBay makes a huge play for those folks. But back to the point, I think the concern for ruining a market or prices on things dropping, resale prices on things we sell dropping, is more of a concern when you talk about an influx of casual sellers than it is for folks like us, because let's face it, we're trying to make money, and we're not gonna undercut the market by 50% to get a sale unless we're absolutely desperate for cash and need to pay a bill tomorrow. So like I said before, for me, the determining factor is all those things I mentioned, but the predominating one is the current market price. Black Rifle Coffee Company grenade mug sold for $20 plus shipping. 2 points in regards to that. One is that certain new resellers especially get confused. They think the market price is the latest sold comps, and that's a huge part of it, but there's more to it than that. The listed comps. I mean, market value is determined by supply and demand. I mean, that's what it is. So you can't just look at the demand side, which is how many are selling and what are they selling for. You also need to look at the supply side of the factor here. How many are listed? This is what we talk about all the time. What is the sell-through rate? Are there 100 things listed, one sold, and you're going to just take that one comp as what you're going to put that item out there for? I oftentimes will take an item that has 3 or 4 sold comps at a certain price and none listed, and I'm jacking that price up. I'm the only game in town. So there's a new market price for that item. It goes the other way as well. Oftentimes when you have items that have been in your store forever and you go back and look at them, the comps on them have changed drastically. It's why they've been in your store forever. So markets change and you need to update your stuff. Here's an example of a small item where space still played a role in me accepting this offer. I was only into them for $2. At the time, I thought I'd get more. These are not big items, but they're big for cosmetics, and that drawer's getting a little tight. And so I sold these off I sent an offer out when I got somebody on the hook. I'm like, yeah, sure, what the heck, $9.50. I only had them listed for $10, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but still making money on them. Not the greatest buy in the world. The determination I made when I made the buy was slightly different, and it didn't affect my overall price as much as anything else did. So $9.50 plus shipping on those. All right, y'all, we got a crowd in here today. Turner, you're sweaty. You're sweaty. What have you been doing all day?
Playing outside.
All right, you got a joke. This is Turner's joke that I heard for the first time the other day and thought it was funny. So what is it?
How does 10 plus 10 equal the same as 11 plus 11?
How does 10 plus 10 equal the same as 11 plus 11? How?
Because 10 plus 10 equals 20, and 11 plus 11 equals 22.
See you later, bud.
Bye.
Hi guys, it's Raken, and we got 2 sales out of the CWP store. First, we got Allison, and she got a Enema Man and a trash cash bag, and I'm assuming it's one of the new ones. And then Amy got a CWP sticker. Alright, bye guys, and don't forget to get your stickers at CommonwealthPicker.com.
Thought I'd come in here real quick and make a couple last points here and show you a couple items, show you what I'm talking about. And I really am interested in getting your opinion on this. Include your model with it as well, and your capacity possibly, because I think that's a big thing if you don't want to talk about the money side of it, but certainly that is a huge concern. Now, there is one thing, you know, a lot of people think that the buy side is the absolute most important part of it. And of course, the cost of an item is a huge big deal, and I totally agree. But there are different considerations on the buy side as opposed to the deciding to sell side. One thing you didn't hear me mention on the sell side when determining a price is time. That determination should be made when you're buying an item. I'll give you an example. Once you're selling an item, the time factor has already been baked in. It doesn't matter. You've already made the decision. So, got some peanuts in there. A glass. I don't know much about glass. So when I bought this glass, I was assuming that I would undersell it. Not necessarily on purpose, but because there's a lot of research that goes into some glass. And I just am not knowledgeable enough. The time involved in all of that research would just wipe out my profits because of the opportunity cost and time. Fortunately, I have a friend, Tim, who helps me out. But still, that's a process, and it takes away from his time, so you don't want to do that. It's like shoes. When I buy shoes, I look for $50 comp shoes thinking I'm probably going to get 35 bucks for these things because I'm not a shoe seller. I don't know how to sell shoes. I don't know how to sell shoes. I know how to sell shoes. I'm just not a pro at it. And I also don't clean them and do everything it takes. So I already bake in the fact that I may undercut the market. And I really don't think it really hurts the feelings of those shoe sellers out there, because their market is to people who want to buy ready to use, jump in, brand new looking shoes. And I'm not selling that a lot of times. I'm selling to a market that wants a lower price for a good pair of shoes that maybe need a little bit of scrubbing. So of course that is the buy side of it, and there's an art to that. There's an art to the selling side of it. I don't care what anybody says, not anybody can be a reseller. Some people struggle to, well, you could, I suppose. You just might not be really successful at it. Some people really struggle to pick good merchandise and to make those determinations quickly and find the right prices and move past things that'll be projects. Like this thing right here. This thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, look, needs clean like crazy. But I comped that thing out, if it was all wonderful and awesome, for like $250 to $400 for that particular one. I got a $100 one out there, and that one doesn't need much work. If that one was in this condition, I wouldn't have bought that one because of the time involved in it. But on the sell side, that's already all been determined. The buy has already been made. The work has either been put in or it hasn't been put in. And some people make that determination after the fact. After they bought something, they're like, yeah, that was a bad buy. Do I really want to dump an hour into this thing? Y'all see Grandpa out there mowing the grass? He's a good pop. And you know what I give him in return? I take his wife out to dinner. All right, so I'm going to give you my determining factors in the order of most significant. I want you to do the same. Maybe we can learn a little bit off of each other as well. And well, maybe we can't, but I think it's an interesting conversation for sure. So for me, it is the current market value of the item in whatever marketplace you're selling it in, and that varies. Second consideration for me is probably different than a lot of folks. For me, it's space. How much space do I have? What is my capacity? And including how long has that item been hanging around? Third could be the opportunity cost of that capital. Now, for me, that's not to take that capital in order to reinvest it. For a lot of folks, it is. But there's still opportunity cost for money sitting there when it could be, I don't know, buying a stock or something, or paying off a debt or whatever it is. And so there is that third factor. The fourth factor for me, way down the list, is what I paid for it. And really, it's not a factor at all. But I want to hear your ideas out there. I also want to hear your models, because I guess that would be my third. What is my model? What is my overall strategy? Where do I want to go? Do I want to be a warehouse getting top dollar, storing things, or do I want to have a system that just flows through and getting that dollar back quickly? So let me know in the comments below what you think of this topic, and I appreciate you stopping by, and I can't wait to see you next time. And I want to mention something really quick. A big thank you. Check this out. A sealed platoon. He must have seen that video that we did on the Commonwealth Picker channel with the case with it too. That's really cool. Check this out. Mark sent us this. Lost and Found 2000. Very, very kind words here. I really do appreciate you. Sent me some other ones as well. So, but this is the big winner. And I read your story here. 59 decided to walk away from a corporate world. I thought I'd try full-time picking and flipping. As you are aware, it's not easy and very scary. My garage sale and church rummage sales around me are seasonal. My fix was I started working in the estate sale company, and now I set up and run sales. Guess who gets first pick? We've mentioned that before, so thank you very much. We appreciate it. Hi, y'all. Blue Ridge Mama just called me. I was upstairs editing a video. She said, you didn't pick up a Bible, dummy. Can you believe that? She called me a dummy. So, I'm kidding. She didn't. But it seems like I always forget something, huh, babe? So this one went out of here. I paid $1. Actually, you know what? I paid 50 cents for this just this last weekend. It's already sold. We just go to Julie. Thank you, Kevin. I've been watching for one of these. Well, I appreciate it. And it's headed your way. $16 for that one. I'll ship it.